What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing good. Today's a beautiful day, and we're talking about Eritrea, a beautiful country of Africa, in a corner of Africa. I know you heard about it before. If you haven't, please have a look at it. Very interesting place. It's been verified for a long time by Western countries, Western nations. They've called it a dictatorship. Some even mention saying that Eritrea is the North Korea of Africa. Why do they say it? North Korea of Africa? Can you believe that? Unbelievable. Nothing to do with North Korea. But as you know by now, most of the time, the reason why they vilify a country is usually because they don't like the policy of the government. And not liking the policy of the government, most of the time, result around a government working for its people. They don't want a government that works for its people. If you work for us, you can do whatever you like. It's fine. We're not going to call you dictator. You can do whatever. You can stay for 30 years. That's okay. You know, countries in Africa has some president that's been there for 30 years. Nobody says a word. But as soon as you start not doing things the way we ask you to do, then we're going to call you dictator. And we mostly going to try to find ways to send democracy via weapons. So here is the president of Eritrea making a very interesting comment about what's happening between Russia and the USA. Let's listen to him. I'm going to make a comment right after. Let's go.
This is not a war from between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war declared by NATO, led by Washington, and Russia had the right to defend itself.
The guy goes straight into the point. This is a war by NATO, guided by Washington. Russia has the right to defend itself. He doesn't mash his word. He doesn't play. Let's follow.
This is war declared on Russia, led by Washington and NATO. So it's very clear, it's a very simple thing. And as I indicated earlier, this war was declared 30 years ago, probably. During after the end of the Cold War, this idea of hegemony came. Control everything, control everything.
Control everything, control everything. That's very interesting.
Influence the world, divide the world into areas of influence. And it's not only expanding influence. It was a declaration of war because there was a concept developed by these guys to contain those who can compete, or at least who can share something in the global scene. That was not allowed. And because of the background of the Cold War era, this obsession of containing Russia was there for the last 30 years. It's nothing new. If you are containing one nation not to grow, not to compete, not to be able to make its contributions, then you are declaring war. I wouldn't be sitting here waiting for someone to contain me with sanctions, with obstructions, with the confusion, all sorts of things. This is a declaration of war. And we had our position very clear, not yesterday or the day before, but we said this is not the kind of world order that the peoples of all continents need. Nobody needs this kind of policies, hegemony, control, and not allow people to grow and work hard to change their quality of life. This idea of war in Ukraine or war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine is not true at all. This is war declared by NATO and Washington against the Russian Federation for the last 30 years. This has been going on and on and on for the last 30 years. How can you contain Russia? Not enable Russia to economically compete. Not enable Russia to compete in technology. Not allow Russia to compete in industries. Not allow Russia to even have influence everywhere. If you have declared this war, then the war is there. It's not a war between Russia and Ukraine. For that matter, our position was clear. We were against this so-called global order or world order. We've been victims of these sanctions. It's not big nations or not powerful nations like Russia, China, or anybody else, but even those who don't bow or kneel down to this ideology of hegemony will have to be punished. Sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. This declaration of war will have to end. This is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war declared by NATO, led by Washington, and Russia had the right to defend itself, not alone. It's not an isolated Russian case. This is a global issue. And we need an order, a global order or a world order that enables everybody to share, cooperate. Complementarity will have to be there. You can't contain someone, you can't contain one nation, you can't force or even use force, all sorts of coercion to subdue nations. This is not acceptable.
Very interesting, fellas. You heard it from himself, president of Eritrea. Eritrea has been vilified many, many years now. They say only negative things about Eritrea. Do not go to Eritrea. It's a very dangerous place. Do not go to Eritrea. It's a very backward place. It's the North Korea of Africa. And most of the time when they say that, there's something. There's another story. There's another version of the story. And I think it's very crucial that most of us learn to identify when we hear these words. The North Korea of Africa. Very dangerous place. They are against democracy. Eritrea has done tremendous work with its people, trying to follow its own path. They wanted to pursuing a development path that is more equitable, a development that does not have a big wealth gap between the rich and the poor. Eritrea has done a tremendous job. They have taken care of their people. Studies are free in Eritrea in some level. Eritrea has produced some of the most literate people in the world. Some of the best literate people in Africa are from Eritrea. Not many people talk about this. If you look at the statistics, this is better than Nigeria, better than Botswana, better than some countries. And I'm not dropping names here to nothing against all those countries. I'm just stating statistics. Eritrea has done great in many, many areas. They have clean water, usable water, made better than many countries, better than Pakistan, better than Colombia. And they want to make you believe Eritrea is one of the most obscure places in the world. And he said again, it's not a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war of NATO against Russia, with Washington leading. They can paint it whichever way they like. That's the reality. This is a war that's been on for 30 years now, as per the president of Eritrea, because they've always tried to contain. They want to contain nations they don't like. They want to subdue nations that don't want to be subdued. They want to push their agenda, and if you're not for the agenda, you don't play by the rules, they call you dictatorship. They call you autocracy. They call you all sort of name to just paint a very negative picture of you. And again, if you do not agree with that, they sanction you. You just sanction. You don't talk my language, I sanction. You don't listen to me, I sanction. You don't play by the game, I sanction. You don't want my song, I sanction. And that's what it is. Eritrea is doing good for itself. And again, if you look at the history, you can see countries like Cuba, sanctions, Venezuela, sanctions, North Korea, sanctions, Syria, sanctions, Eritrea, sanction. What do they have in common? They have no McDonald's, no KFC, no big enterprises. Yes. Libya was sanctioned because for many years there was no McDonald's, no KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. There was no big capital, big businesses. The basics is very simple. You need to let our business run into your country. Your country must be of consumers of our product. If your people do not consume our product, you're a dictator. You don't play by the rules. You're not open to democracy. You're not open to capitalism. They're going to do anything to destroy your country. So I'm not saying that these countries are right, completely right with whatever they're doing. You will never find a perfect country. But I believe people have the rights to keep their own mentality, their own way of life, like China has done. Okay, China has done great for itself and for its people. Doesn't matter how you look at it from the outside. May not suit your needs. But for Chinese people, they feel like they're happy with the way things are going. And Eritrea is clearly following the work of China as a template to develop its own people. We live in a world, the reality is shut, the truth is squandered, shut at the bottom. They don't want you to speak the truth. They don't want you to hear the truth. He said, no country has developed itself via World Bank and IMF. World Bank and IMF are there to supposedly give you money so you can develop your country, so you can build your infrastructure, so you can build hospitals and stuff. But the bottom line is they give you money, then they tell you how you're going to use it. They will provide you the people that's going to come and construct the things you want to construct. They will impose who will be the contractors of the work you're trying to do, the school you want to build, the hospital you want to build, the roads you want to build. How are you going to spend the money? And at the end of the day, you don't do nothing with the money they send you with. There is no one country that is developed itself via money from World Bank and IMF. It doesn't exist. It's just a way to impoverish countries, to keep you in poverty, independence, to keep you subdued. They don't want you to be free. Eritrea has chosen the way of freedom. It is, in fact, as per some experts, the only African free country is Eritrea, because they're not in a matrix. They're not in a system. That's why they don't like them. Same as Cuba. That's what Eritrea's situation is not as bad as Cuba, but yeah, that's why they don't want them, because they're not willing to incline into those orders. They don't want to respect the orders. And that's the reason why we see the war in Russia. Why do you think everybody's against Russia? Do you think it's really just because Russia's in Ukraine? No, that may be one of the causes, maybe. But how many times have we seen Western countries invade other countries? Many, many times in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, just to name a few. How many times have you seen many people in a Western country opposed to one Western country that invaded another country? None. They don't do that because it's their own agenda. They are the same people. Now, here we're not talking about all Western people. We're talking about the hegemony. We're talking about the top of the top, the cream of the cream, the people that are using all of us for their own benefit. Big pharma, big business, big agenda, big technology, big info, big data. Those are the people we're talking about. Let me know how you feel about this. Very interesting insight. There's one comment about a brother from Eritrea, I think. And we need to listen to that as well. Very, very interesting.
Eritrea has a higher literacy rate than Pakistan, Nigeria, Egypt, Mali, Niger, and Sudan. They have a higher life expectancy than Nigeria, South Africa, Angola, Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique. Now, I want to just reiterate some of what I just said. In the first two, that they have a higher literacy rate than Nigeria, that they have a higher life expectancy than Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the richest nations on the planet Earth. There's no reason why people are living in abject poverty all across that country. And that right there should tell you something, because Nigeria is one of America's best friends on the African continent and has been for some time. And their social indicators are shameful. Their use of resources, the income inequality, the looting, the kleptocracy, shameful conditions for people of Nigeria. Lower life expectancy than Eritrea, lower literacy rate, and you never hear anything that's said about Eritrea said about Nigeria. And that's not a huge knock on other African countries, but I think it's important. Also, Pakistan, Pakistan obviously has many development issues, but lower literacy rate than Eritrea, lower life expectancy than Eritrea. When you look at access to improved drinking water, this is a big issue in Eritrea. It's one of the main things that they're working on is access to water, access to more sanitation facilities. I think it's something like 54% of villages now or communities are open defecation free, which is a big thing that was celebrated this year by some of the UN agencies that Eritrea had accomplished. And that's a big thing. So improved drinking water, that's a huge issue. That's something that they're focusing on. So more people in Eritrea have access to improved drinking water. Safely managed water. This is a different one. Similar sort of stat, but more people in Eritrea have access to safely managed water, so clean water, than Nigeria, Pakistan, Congo, Brazzaville, and Peru.
Let me know how you feel about this. Your input is always important. We want to know. If you want to join us, feel free, come join us. Drop a comment. It's always a great pleasure to have you. I wish you a beautiful day. God bless.